Hello and welcome to Old School RuneScape Summer Summit. Woo!
Oh yeah!
We're going to be diving into up-and-coming amazing content that we're going to be releasing across the rest of 2021 and into early 2022. I'm Mod Kieran, and behind the scenes we have the wonderful Mod Druid and Mod Spear making the stream all work. And tonight we'll be joined by Ash, Elena, Flippy, Husky, Aiza, Oasis, Arcane, Ed. What a wonderful cast. That's a whole ton of people that are going to be involved with tonight's show. And of course, I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Mod Sween, and we also have Mod Sani on the sofa too.
Thank you, Mod Kieran, and it feels great to be back. We were just saying it's been 16 months or something like that since we've been in the studio, and it feels so awesome to be here and just being able to walk around. Now, before we get stuck in, I just wanted to say a big thank you to everybody watching. Everybody's been playing Old School for those 16 months. It's been a really challenging time, and we're extremely grateful for the fact that you find solace in Gillenor and you let us do what we do. And it feels awesome to be here now, talking to you about the cool content you're going to get to carry on playing. So you're going to get to hear about some amazing projects that you already know about, but what's a stream like this without a great new announcement? So back to Mod Kieran.
Yeah, so just before we dive in, I've got a couple of things I'd love to shout out, because who doesn't love cheaper membership? So firstly, right now, you can get 7 days of membership when you link your RuneScape account and Prime Gaming accounts. That offer is live until 24th of August, so do get it quickly. You can use the command !Prime for more info. But also, starting on August 16th, we'll be running the Premier Club Summer Sale. So for a limited time only, you can get our best value 12-month subscription package. And I do have to point out that's unfortunately not available if you've already purchased the Premier Club package, which we had live at the start of the year. So, of course, what am I saying? I've screwed up, guys. It's been 4 minutes or whatever. But that's all right. To you, Sween.
It's been 2 minutes. Thank you very much. So we're joined by Mod Sani, one of Old School's newest community managers. Now, this is your very first time in the studio in Jagex HQ. How does it feel? Are you excited?
Hell yeah. Feels great. Feels great. Like the whole studio is amazing. Like it's giant and there's so much cool stuff in it. Like it's just crazy just being here. We will be behind the scenes, myself and Mod Light, taking your questions. So please make sure to hashtag Summer Summit OSRS. We will be scouring the Twitter sphere, seeing your comments and putting them live.
Also in the Twitch chat too, and if you're in the Twitch chat, please be nice. I can see a whole roster of JMods here and watching and supporting us. So we'll be coming down like an iron fist, but we don't need to do that if there's lots of love hearts and smiley faces in the chat. So let's stick with that. It's Summer Summit, good vibes only. But let's waste no more time. Why don't we see what mods Aiza and Husky are up to?
Did somebody say Deadman?
Look at the loot on the floor. That is everybody's dream.
Oh my goodness, he's gone! He's done again! Oh, he did!
It's one of the most competitive tournaments so far.
I imagine that at the moment it's a lot of panic.
Can he get the hit in just before he dies?
Their names are going to go down in history.
Not used to it. Something that they don't normally experience in the normal game.
It looks like it's the moment we've all been waiting for.
He's still got a chance to win it.
Oh, the free KO!
So there it is, folks. Deadman is coming back to Old School RuneScape. Now, we know that you wanted us to spice up the experience from the last time Deadman came about, and boy have we made some changes in Deadman Reborn. So let's go and have a look at what those exactly are. Husky, talk through the players through one of the first changes.
Thanks, Aiza. The most prominent feature that's coming to Deadman this time round is a 3-life system. Now, that's exactly as it sounds. When you spawn into the game, you will have 3 lives. Don't worry for the first 2 though. They will act exactly like a previous Deadman mode death. You will lose the items which you are not protecting. They go to the other PKer along with a bank key containing the top 10 most valuable items from your bank. On your final death though, that's where things get interesting. You will lose all of your combat experience and 10% of your skilling experience. Don't worry, you keep your questing your quest progress. That's pretty important. But yeah, straight back to the start again. And when we thought about what Deadman was for this year round, it was that high risk, high reward gameplay, really forcing players into this environment where they have to compete with each other to come out on top.
So you may be thinking, 3 lives, losing all of your combat experience is going to be absolute hell when a max level player charges towards you. Now, we thought about that as well, so we are going to make another change with Deadman Reborn, which is the introduction of combat level brackets. Now, these combat level brackets will essentially act as a barrier to prevent higher level players from being able to essentially stomp the lower levels. You'll be restricted to replaying on certain worlds that only certain combat levels can actually access. The first bracket will be combat level 3 to 35, and then it will go up to 36 to 70. Then we'll have 71 to 100, and then finally the last bracket will be combat levels 101 to 126. So you at least can have that knowledge that you're going to go out in some relative safety, that you're not going to go against someone who's a vastly higher combat level than you. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone is going to be playing on the same, power level, because if you know RuneScape, then you know people like to min-max. And we imagine there's going to be a few players out there that are going to make the most powerful build possible with the pure intention of taking away all of your lives. So make sure you take that into account, play around it, and make it part of your strategy as well.
But that's not all that's exciting coming to Deadman Reborn. I mean, you're already thinking, I've got these lives to worry about, and now I've got these optimized people who are coming to hunt me down. This just sounds like it's going to be no fun at all, right? Well, that's where you're wrong, because taking heavy inspiration from leagues, we're going to be introducing Deadman Sigils. These are going to fundamentally change up your gameplay experience, just like Relics did, and they're going to come in 3 tiers. They're going to affect combat, skilling, and utility. You can have 3 of these active at any moment in time, and you can swap them out whenever you want in a safe zone. This is going to save you feeling like the sigils that you got mean you're stuck to that build for the entire tournament, and they'll also allow you to try out all of the fun effects that we end up making for you. They can only be transferred through the Grand Exchange, and the best part is you get your first sigil to choose from as soon as you jump into the game mode.
So with previous Deadmans, there's always been a little bit of a gulf between solo players and those that are more interested in playing together as a team. Now, we don't want to remove the teaming element from Deadman because it does make up a huge part of what makes the game mode so great, but we are looking to make some changes that will help improve the solo player experience, but also make it a little bit riskier for everyone involved. So the first major change that we're making is actually removing single way combat and replacing it with single plus combat, which means that if you are in combat with an NPC, any other player can attack you at any moment in time. You won't be able to go ahead and box with any NPCs anymore. You'll always be favored in terms of PvP combat. So you have to keep that in mind. Everywhere that you enter is going to be dangerous unless you're in a safe zone. Now, in addition to that, one of the things that we will also be doing is changing some prominent multi-way areas into single plus, and this is mostly going to be helping those players that are looking to get certain quests completed without automatic quest completions. And then finally, the other change that we're making is preventing players from being able to be speared from single-way combat into multi-way combat. We want to make sure that the choice to be in multi-combat is dictated by the player themselves rather than essentially an army of spears.
So, with all of these exciting content changes in mind, the only question I have left is, what is Deadman without a finale? In previous iterations, we've seen groups of players form alliances for the final hour, whittling down the opposition until only 256 players remain, and at that point they are moved into the 1v1 section of the tournament. This time around, we're scrapping all of that entirely. Instead, we're going to take the top 2,048 players and put them straight into the 1v1 section of the tournament. This will be determined by total level, so those skilling sigils might be more useful than you think.
So never mind Deadman without a finale, what's a finale without a prize pool? Now this Deadman, we're going to have a very generous $32,000 on offer, with first place taking a grand total of $20,000. So maybe you do want to take this one a little bit more seriously than before and make sure your strategies are completely nailed down. So how about we get the blog live for Deadman, roll the VT, and in the meantime, I'm going to get myself a bank key.
Wait, you said this was a safe zone.
Look at the loot on the floor. That is everybody's dream.
Oh my goodness, he's gone! Who's done it here? Oh, he did!
Danger is everywhere.
I imagine that at the moment it's a lot of panic.
Choose wisely if you are to survive. A grueling 4-week contest.
How fast did that just turn around?
That was so close. You were saying it was a one-sided fight.
With thousands of players. And but one chance of glory.
Their names are going to go down in history.
With all new empowerments.
He's still got a chance to win it.
It's a tournament like no other.
MMORPG is going nuclear.
Legends are not born.
Oh, the 3 KO.
They are created.
It looks like it's the moment we've all been waiting for.
Will you be ruthless enough?
And we're joined by Mod Aiza on the sofa.
Hey,
Mod
hey.
Husky got wrecked.
He did, mate. What can I say? I'm a formidable archeress, apparently.
I also want to hark back to did somebody say Deadman? Because if you didn't clip that, please go back and get it. It was awesome. Right, we've got a lot of questions about Deadman. We know you have probably tons you want to ask as well. So in the chat, feel free to ask. On Twitter, feel free to ask. First up, Mod Aiza, when can players get into Deadman?
Okay, so we are aiming to release Deadman Reborn on the 25th of August. If that's going to change, we'll let you know as soon as possible. But so far, the aim is the 25th of August, so not long at all.
Very soon, very exciting. Right, let's. I have some questions about the changes we mentioned on the. What you and Husky mentioned. Let's start with lives, shall we?
Okay, let's go.
Okay, so you mentioned the free life system.
Yep.
Question, scenario. You die, you lose 2 lives, you don't lose any XP.
Mm-hmm.
You die and you lose your 3rd life and you lose some XP. What happens on any deaths after that? You mentioned 3 lives, what happens next?
Yeah, sure. So when you lose your 3rd life and your combat experience is wiped, you lose 10% of your skilling experience, your quest progress saves. You essentially start the game over again, back to level 3 at the starting zone, and you get to re-choose one of the starting sigils that you get to pick from, and then you begin again with 3 lives. So you basically restart your journey, but with most of your skilling progress and all of your quest progress stored. But your bank at that point is completely wiped. You lose everything else.
So skilling progress, quest progress still intact, but you lose combat XP and you lose your bank back to level 3.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Now, did you consider even harsher life mechanics? So almost 3 lives, 3 strikes and you're out?
Yeah.
Hardcore Deadman style approach.
Well, interestingly, originally, the initial conception of Deadman Reborn was exactly that. After the 3 lives, that was it. You had to start over again. Everything was reset. All your skilling progress, your quests. But we actually had like a very early kind of like player validation call. We pulled in some Deadman veterans, some people that had never played Deadman before, people that are interested in just PVM and skilling, and basically put this concept to those players and kind of said like, how do you feel? And as exciting as that 3 life system and the risk versus reward element came across really well in terms of feedback, it did seem a little bit too punishing, especially when you consider some skills in Deadman just aren't the most exciting to train, like agility or runecraft and that kind of stuff. So yeah, we opted to be a little bit less harsh and make you lose 10% of that instead, but your combat does get wiped. And although it sounds really harsh, if people are out there like wondering, damn, I'm gonna have to start all over again, there's gonna be a lot of perks available to you. Check out the blog, wait till you're in game, because combat experience is gonna be a lot faster than it has ever been before in previous Deadmans as well, so.
I really just pushed the risk reward element quite far still, even without the hardcore death rate.
Oh, so no, for sure. You know, you're running around on your last life and then, you know, suddenly some absolute beast comes towards you. You have to really think about it, especially when you're going out venturing. You know, it's no longer just about losing your items in your bank. The risk now is your combat levels as well. So,
absolutely. I mean, the other big thing that I think was announced that's really going to shake up Deadman here, the meta certainly, is sigils. So, like, can you tell us how desirable you expect them to be? Like, they're tradable, like equipment and supplies. Do you think they'll be more expensive than the best equipment?
I think there are a very small number of sigils that will most certainly be the most expensive items in the entirety of Deadman. One of them in particular is so good that everyone is going to want to have it. But not all of them share the same levels of power. There are 3 different tiers after all. And you know they'll come from different sources. You know, some of them will drop from normal NPCs, some of them will only be available from bosses, and some of them will have high chances in different areas generally as well. So it all really just depends. And at the end of the day, it's a player-driven economy. So you get to determine how expensive things should be. But I do absolutely see some of them being the most expensive items. Some of them will just become kind of like commodity sigils as well that you want to have with you all of the time, and that you want to switch in and out of. So maybe those ones won't be as expensive.
I certainly can't wait to see what people do with them. It's going to be fascinating to see how
same.
much they're going for. So is there a limit to the number of sigils you can use? Or could you just buy them all and activate them all, run around just gank noobs wherever you go?
Well, as fun as that sounds, there is a limit. So you'll be able to have a total of 3 sigils activated at any one time, and 2 of them can be combat related. And as Husky mentioned in the video, we have skilling and utility sigils as well. So yeah, you can own as many of them as you like. Granted, the only way you can buy them, in case you missed that, was through the Grand Exchange. That's the only way you can trade them. But yeah, you'll be able to have 3 activated, 2 of them combat related, or you could choose to have 3 skilling or 3 utility instead if you wanted to. And yeah, as long as you've got access to them, you own them, you can switch freely as and when you want in a safe zone.
Awesome.
So. Sweet. So Mod Light and Mod Sani have given us some questions from the chat, but before we get to those, I've got a few questions about the final stages. So we mentioned a change, it being a series of 1v1s, rather than what some players might really fondly remember of the frenzy of the final areas, you know, chin chompers flying everywhere, ancient magics and ice cubes appearing all over, everybody spam clicking brews to stay alive, white dots running around in circles. So what led us to move away from that to the 1v1, the series of 1v1s?
Yeah, I mean, to be totally honest with you, Sween, I just didn't want to have to cast that again because it's an absolute nightmare. No, that's not the real reason, of course. As great as that was, Deadman, us bringing back Deadman is about making drastic changes and completely shifting it up so that it doesn't feel the same each time that you go into Deadman. And this was one of the most obvious things that we thought of, that there actually was a lot of feedback where, yes, a large amount of players did enjoy that multi aspect of it, but then there was a probably even larger portion of players that didn't, because you can play through the entirety of Deadman and you could have been the absolute best player, worked your arse off completely, got the best gear, the highest stats, and then lost it all through no fault of your own really, other than not being able to be in a good position with a clan or wrong place at the wrong time. And that felt awful for those kind of players. So yeah, we thought, you know what, whilst we've got the opportunity to change things, why not just see what happens if we just let all of the top people qualify instead. And those that did want to show their prowess as a solo player, so to speak, can do that now.
Listen, that makes perfect sense to me. Another question about the finale stuff. So how much of a break will there be between the end of qualifying for the finale and then the finale itself actually occurring?
Sure, so at the moment we are still firming up exactly how we will transition from the seasonal part of Deadman Reborn into the finale, just because the logistics of pulling across 2,048 players into different worlds is something that, yeah, takes a little bit of time. But we do anticipate that in between each round there'll be a few minutes where you'll be able to at least, gather yourself, take a few deep breaths, maybe dry your hands if your palms are a little bit sweaty like mine are right now. Yeah, so there should be a good break, and it might be that we go from the seasonal part ends the day before, and then the next day we go into the finale. So you have like that break at least to kind of like figure out what you're going to do into those 1v1 stage.
Cool, makes sense. And a similar question actually relating to breaks and during the finales and stuff. So I worked it out. It'll be 11 fights from start to finish in the 1v1 new stages. That's a lot.
It is.
Not just for casters, but also for the players at home. Will there be any breaks during those sections?
Yeah, I think similarly, in between each fight, especially if you're one of the people to, finish your fight really quickly, you've got to wait for the rest of the round to finish. You can have a longer break there, but we will put a mandatory kind of like, few minutes in between each round. Again, just so that we'll first of all have to move people across into the other arenas anyway, so there's a little bit of a break. But yeah, you should have, again, just a few minutes at least.
Yeah, I mean, even when we think about the broadcast that we might do on the night, we want to talk about the fights that have happened and cut back to analyse the fights before we go back in. So it is good to have the break there.
Right, so let's take some questions from the chat. Big thank you to Mod Light and Mod Sani for gathering these. So I'll begin, and then Kieran, let's take it in turn, shall we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. First one I've got is, will we get to see all of the sigils before Deadman is released?
No.
Okay.
Simple as that, straightforward. No.
No, you'll see a few. If the blog's already live, you'll see there's a few in there. I think there should be
Mod Sani's
an image.
nodding, the blog is live.
Okay, we've got the blog live. So if you haven't already, head to the Old School website. You can see the whole blog, everything that we've got planned for this Deadman. A lot of detail in there. But you'll see a sneak peek of 3 of the sigils that will be on offer and the kind of like effects that they'll provide. But no, we're not going to show you them all, because what would be the fun in that? You want you to figure out the strategy as you go along, make it a little bit more exciting.
Next question we got coming in is there still a grace period at the beginning of an account?
There is, yes. So as far as I am aware, When you start, you'll have a 1 hour grace period where you can't be attacked and you can't attack other players. That also applies when you move up to the next bracket in terms of the combat level worlds. So when you go from the 3 to 35 to the 36 to 70, you'll have an hour of immunity then as well, so that you can obviously, get yourself together, figure out what you're going to do, and not obviously spawn in and just die.
Okay, so the next question we've got is from Twitter from Viper Zav, and they've asked, do you have any negotiation tips for more vacation days to be able to play Deadman Reborn?
None that I would recommend or try and say on stream right now, because I'd give away some of my own tactics.
And you can't tell me those.
No, exactly. Unfortunately, my boss is right here, so it'd be probably a bad idea. Yeah, no, sorry.
Offer to split the winnings, maybe? I don't know.
Just use mobile. Just have a lot of toilet breaks.
Definitely.
You're choking me up over here.
Sorry, mate.
We got another question from Twitter from Unreal OSRS. Is it just PvP deaths or also PVM deaths that count for losing lives?
Well, interestingly enough, Deadman just so happens to be the game mode where PVM is actually dangerous again, because yes, you will lose lives if you die to PVM deaths as well as PvP deaths. The only difference being that if you died in a PVM situation, as long as it wasn't your last life, you'd be able to go back and reclaim your items from your gravestone like you would normally in the main game. But yeah, it would make you lose one of your 3 lives.
Cool, and just 2 more questions before we move on to the next section. So the combat level worlds, bracketed. What happens if you lose levels and you die, and then you don't meet the level bracket? Do you get booted?
You will, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you were to somehow fall out of the only way you can lose your combat levels is if you lose your 3rd life. And when you lose your 3rd life, you are kicked out of the game and you're asked to log back in, at which point you're level 3, so you can only get back into the main combat level world. When you reach a higher combat level, you'll be, again, kicked out and told to go to a different world. There'll be some kind of messaging in game just to kind of obviously handhold you a little bit and let you know that that's happening, but you won't be able to continue participating in a world that you don't have the combat level requirements for.
Cool. Awesome. And the last question we've got right now is Mr. Mammoth from Mr. Mammoth is here. Did the J-mod recover from the bow shot?
Fortunately, I can say that Husky is alive and well. However, he has had to take a week off in order to fully recover.
Was that one of those tactics you were mentioning earlier?
Well, get your colleague to shoot you with a bow and get a week off work from sick. I didn't recommend that. That's just what I did with Husky.
Right, so we want to get moving along. I know a lot of you have tons of questions about Deadman, a lot of specifics. There's a blog, read that. That will probably include a lot of information you're asking about, and we'll cover the questions in due course in the coming weeks. So, Modeza, any last thoughts you'd like to share about Deadman?
No, other than honestly, I'm just really excited to see what you all think about Deadman Reborn and the ideas that we've put forward. Obviously, give us your feedback. There's plenty of threads that will be available, areas that you can post that. I'll have a check through it this evening. And more importantly, I'm really excited to see what players actually end up doing in Deadman Reborn. I think it's a great opportunity to just have something completely new, never been done before. The metas that could evolve from it are, going to be awesome.
Yeah, I hope I speak for all of us here. Like, we really wanted to bring Deadman back, and we heard your feedback loud and clear that you wanted us to shake it up and really offer something different, and that's exactly what we're trying to do with Deadman Reborn. So, all right, thanks for joining us, Aiza.
Thank you for having me.
It's been lovely. And next up, we'll be joined by mods Ash and Elena. But first, we have something special from one of our awesome old school creators.
Hi, my name's Jimmy, and I am a group Ironman. Ironman was like single-player RuneScape, and now it's like playing 2 to 5 person co-op. Personally, I'm curious to see the different types of groups that form. There's so many ways group Ironman can go. This game is going to start new friendships and end a lot of old ones, and that's funny to me, because I'm lucky enough to have a flawless 4-man team that's going to dominate the leaderboards. Stay there, I'm just going to grab a few of our favorite things. Where the hell is, We've got a lot of stuff in here, sorry, it's very disorganized. I'm gonna have to talk to the team about that one. Am I blind? You know what, do me a favor. I gotta figure something out. Just roll the bit we were gonna do, the different types of group Ironman teams. Show them that. Just roll it.
Yeah, day 3 for our group's going alright. I've just done this early game content so many times, I'm just on autopilot.
We're a little bit behind schedule, but I think we can make up for lost time with some RNG.
I feel like we've got somewhat of an anchor on the team, to be honest.
What do you mean, anchor?
But Group Ironman is about facing challenges you've never faced before.
It's just us.
All right, are we done here? We should really just get going.
I don't know. I'm out of run energy, man. I feel like we should do some stuff on this side of the map first before we go across that big scary mountain.
I've got a repressed memory deep down telling me not to go this way.
You'll be fine. I still didn't bake that cake that guy wanted in Lumbridge. I still have this egg in my pocket.
I'm not going through that.
All right, you know what? You guys stay here, all right? While you're shearing sheep or whatever it is you people do, I'm going to go do the Fire Giant quest. That's going to get me like 30 levels.
I saw that there's a gold bar underneath the Varrock bank I want to try to grab.
I don't want to hear it. You guys can go 3-click goblins or something. Yeah, I'm going to go kill a dragon, probably.
Oh my god, I just remember there's a path right here that goes all the way around the mountain.
Oh yeah, it's right there.
Yeah, he didn't need to go up there.
We wanted something new to play, and here we are.
I always wanted to play RuneScape, but my parents wouldn't switch my membership over from Club Penguin, so it never happened.
Hey, you coming out here?
Yeah, I'm coming. How? My arrow keys are just moving the camera. I don't know.
Hurry up!
I'm looking around. I'm flying in circles.
I swear to God, time dilates when I'm out here.
WASD isn't bound to walk keys. I can't move. I'm spinning in the camera. Help me.
Just click the door.
Click the ground? Click the ground.
Oh, that worked.
I can see the senior home got Wi-Fi. I don't even know what that means, but I mean it.
We've got a new tutorial island thing to do after this, so keep up.
What kind of monster makes you click the ground to move?
It's like a f***ing episode of Rugrats. Baby's about to go out on their stupid adventure.
It's just so nice to be able to work towards an end game goal as a team and just overcome obstacles together, you know?
Hey! Where's my oak logs?
What?
Oak logs. I cut 300 oak logs. They're not in the bank. The one that we share together. They're not there.
I use them for fire making.
You what?
Great job, by the way.
Why would you?
You contribute so much to this team, and I'm a great job, sport. Anyway, like I was saying, working together and, powering through grinds together is just, it's so rewarding, and there's really no other feeling like it, so.
And on that note, I will be on the node, the new recruitment island place, looking for a group to become a group Ironman with, because the last guys weren't working out for me. But the next group will, probably. New me. New us, I should say. Because we're... Alright, yeah, see you there. Group Ironman time. I'm sure everything will go exactly as planned.
Hiya. I'm very pleased to get to talk to you all at last about Group Ironman. It's been such a long time since we were on that RuneFest stage, or when we could have RuneFests, where we talked about the major infrastructure work that was going to be needed to make old school RuneScape handle permanent groups in the way that RS3 does. Now, it wasn't a straight backport either. We needed you to be able to join a group not just for clans, but for Group Ironman as well, so that you could be in your clan and your group without them interfering with each other, so that you can keep playing the game the way you want to play it. So that, of course, took more time. We hope it's going to be worth it in the long run. Anyway, you can see the progress in the form of the clan system live in old school RuneScape, and now that that's stable, we're delighted to be able to build on it to form the Group Ironman groups that you've been waiting for so long. So let's go through the basics. Firstly, groups will be between 2 and 5 players. You'll be able to fight monsters together, share your tradable resources with each other, maybe visit each other's player-owned houses. Now, building on that, we're hoping that along with letting Group Iron players go to each other's houses, like non-Irons do, we'd like to be able to let existing Iron accounts have guests in their player-owned houses too, and we should be able to build that into the same work we're doing for Group Ironman, so that'll be a little benefit for the rest of the game as well. Now, that brings us to high scores. We know that competition is a big part of gaming for many people. Not everyone, sure, but a lot of people. So Group Ironman is due to have high scores that will let you show which is the greatest group of them all, which group is superior to all the other Iron buddies out there. Now, that of course means that we need you all to be starting afresh on an even playing field, rather than having existing high-end accounts buddying up as a group Ironman group in the first place. Otherwise the high scores will just be full of existing high-end accounts. So we're going to need you to all start afresh from that. Now, here's Magdalena to tell us about how the groups will be formed.
Thank you, Ash. Let's talk about your journey as a group Ironman. We all know Tutorial Island. Before leaving Tutorial Island, you would get a new option to start as a group Ironman by going to the node. On screen, we're displaying one version of the node. Keep in mind this is just a concept and the final design is not finalized yet. It may change before launch. The node is a new area only accessible to Group Ironman. On the node, you'll meet the Group Ironman Tutor. The Group Ironman Tutor is similar to the existing Ironman tutors and would provide you with a brand new armor only for Group Ironman and completely free. The reason we're making a new area for Group Ironman is so that it's easy to group together. If you're only surrounded by other Group Ironman, you know that every other person is a potential teammate. Additionally, on Tutorial Island, there's a restriction where you can't actually chat to other players. We're removing that from the node so you can actually talk to people before grouping with them. Some people have already decided on their Group Ironman, which I think is great. Some people are really prepared. Others, don't worry if you haven't decided on your group yet. We will have official group finding worlds to make it easier for you to find others. And if you go to the node and you end up not having chosen a group yet, or you can't find anyone, don't worry. You'll be able to re-choose your game mode upon leaving. So if you want to be a main account instead, or a regular Iron, you can do that. Another reason to have a brand new place for Group Ironman is so that existing groups can invite more people. Let's say a player in your group leaves. You shouldn't doom everyone else in the group just because one person ruins the fun for everyone. What you can do is pop over to the node, invite a new person to the group. So like Ash mentioned, only existing players can fill in the gap in a group. This is to protect the integrity of the game mode, so that no groups get an unfair advantage. A group that has never had any other members and kept to the original group that it was when it was made on the node, that should be recognized. We're introducing something called Prestige Status, where you lose the status if you invite a new member to the group, but we want to recognize those original groups as they were. And we hope to be able to present these on the high scores, so that you can show the whole world that you truly stand alone together.
Thanks for watching. Now, back to the studio.
And welcome back, and we are joined by Mod Elena on the sofa. Now, before we get into the Group Ironman questions and the details, which she's kindly volunteered to answer, let's ask a question from the chat. It's been asked by a lot of people. Kieran, I'm looking to you for this answer. Group Ironman when?
Early to mid-autumn. Or fall, if you're American and don't understand what autumn is. We don't understand what fall is either, so, you know, it goes both ways. But early to mid-autumn, so not too far in the future. We're really, really excited, because obviously this has been a one we've all been waiting for a long time. So
I heard it's because leaf fall down from tree.
It makes sense. It does make sense. And I'm quite looking forward to, can you imagine, right? Having a live stream or posting a blog, and it's not full of people asking when Group Ironman's being released, because it will have been released. That's an exciting prospect. But let's get into the Group Ironman questions anyway. Madalena, first question I have is, can you tell us in more detail how recruitment will work?
Sure. So recruitment will only be possible on this new place that we call the node.
The node, yeah.
Yeah. Most players will probably just form their groups as they leave Tutorial Island. So there's a direct link from Tutorial Island to the node. They will go there straight away. But if you're an existing group, you have to return to that place, to the node, to recruit these new players to join your group.
Okay. And can you confirm how big groups are going to be?
Yeah, they're going to be 2 to 5 players.
Awesome. So what happens if somebody does leave the group? Unfortunately, like that might well be a prospect. You touched on it in the video, but can you give us a bit more info?
Sure. So when a player leaves the group, obviously that's a bummer. We don't want that to happen. And you kind of leave people behind. But let's say that maybe they're inactive, you have to go. At that point, there are 2 ways we can do this. We can either let them keep their status and remain a group Ironman, at which point you'd just have like a bunch of gaps in your new group, so you'd be like the leader of a new group, and you could go to the node and invite a bunch of new people and just start your journey all over again. The problem with that is that, let's say you have a bunch of items, like you're a really progressed group Ironman, and then you get a bunch of new group members and you give them all your items, and then you leave. Now this fresh new group has a bunch of high-level items, which seems a bit unfair. So what I've been thinking about is just having an option where if you want to keep your group Ironman status upon leaving the group, you could then choose to keep your status and lose your tradable items. That way you can't give them away for free to everyone else. But I recognize that some people are really precious about their items. They earn these, you know? So in that case, I think they should be able to leave the group, but as a main account. So that's essentially de-ironing as a group Ironman would be to just leave the group.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, it seems like a really tricky balance for us to try and keep the competition fair for group Ironman.
Exactly.
But also not get on everyone's nerves when because people are going to leave, people are going to be inactive, and you might want to form new groups and find new members. So
it's going to happen, sadly.
So towards the end of that last answer, you kind of mentioned generous players wanting to give stuff away for free, and then we saw in Jimmy's awesome video people stealing stuff from other players.
Yeah.
Are you concerned about some group members perhaps being a bit nefarious and stealing items from shared storage and stuff?
A little bit, yeah. That's always a risk, right? Like when you lend people items, like you never really know if they're gonna run away with it, but that's really hard for us to limit as well, and we don't want to limit free trade, right? Like that's really old school, so...
Not again.
Exactly. So we just rely on the groups really to do what you feel is right. If you trust your group members, lend them your items. But you don't have to. You can work together with them without giving them everything, right?
That makes sense to me. So I guess the advice we're going to give is a short, blunt, choose good friends.
Exactly.
As always. I mean, that goes for life. That goes for group Ironman. That is just a life pro tip right there from Rod Sween. Don't say we don't give you anything here on Summer Summit. So for Ironmen, they have to take on bosses alone, right? When you go to kill, say, General Grado, nobody else can do damage to the boss, otherwise you don't get the loot.
Exactly.
Is that different for Group Ironman? Can they form a group and fight the boss together?
Yeah, that's really something we wanted to nail down, is that you can have those bosses, those boss interactions along with your friends, just like a main account. Obviously, if someone outside of your group hits that boss, then you don't get anything. Same as regular Ironman.
It sounds like kind of essentially the core idea is that the Ironman restrictions are widened to your group.
Exactly.
Awesome.
So the last question we have before we go to the chat questions, a really conceptual one here, so really speculative, I imagine. How do you think players will approach playing Group Ironman compared to regular Ironman?
It's going to be different because obviously you can assign people to do the jobs you don't want to do. So let's say I hate rune crafting, I'll just send Kieran to do my rune crafting.
Because he loves it, yeah.
Yeah. There's definitely some planning and delegation that can be done, but I could also see this being a really great way of introducing new people to Ironman. I've heard so many people say that they don't want to try Ironman because they have to do everything alone. It's tedious. This way you can actually get a little help along the way. So.
It lightens the grind, and obviously everyone already knows old school, it's quite grindy. Ironman pushes that a little bit further. This will let you get some of that experience of like that satisfaction you get as an Ironman when you really obtain like a hard to get reward. But yeah, it's going to be really awesome. Like to me, this is the social way to experience old school RuneScape. So we'll move on to chat questions.
It is, yeah. So I was going to add a little bit more before we move on, which is I've never really given Ironman much of my time. I prefer to play my main account. But I think knowing that other players, my friends, will hold me accountable to carry on to keep on the grind, I'm hoping it will kind of push me more into that mindset of things. Maybe I'm just naive, but I've kind of got this like idealized version. It's going to play out like a D&D campaign where you'll have your set roles, and that's just how it's going to kind of unravel.
And then in reality, it's going to be like, sweet, where are my 1,000 anglerfish? You said you'd fish me 1,000 anglerfish. Where are they? You said they'd be in my bank by tomorrow.
Like, Kieran, I'm hungover. Leave me alone. Okay, let's take some questions from the chat. Do you want to kick us off, Kieran?
Yeah, absolutely. So we got a question from Martin Jensen on Twitter. How are untradables going to work in Group Ironman? Could you just trade your fire cape over to somebody else within the group?
We're going to leave untradables just as they are. Yeah, that's really it. You can't trade fire capes, you can't trade infernal capes, all that stuff.
So it'll be like, you could get help with the resources and
Exactly,
supplies
yeah.
and whatnot that you'll have to get the fire cape, but we're not going to facilitate trading untradables. Makes sense.
Okay, and the next question we've got is from Pure Spam. He asked, will you get experience versus other players in Group Ironman?
A very low amount of experience.
Okay.
We've found that if you don't get experience, then people can get these really weird niche account builds that just won't level up ever, so you can keep like, I don't remember exactly what kind of builds there is, but yeah, you can basically gain no XP, so you can stay at that combat level or that certain level forever and just get fed all the supplies and weapons and gear that you need from others in the group. So a slow, like, low amounts.
We got a big question coming in from Max Life asking, will banks be shared? Is there a private and a group bank?
So we're aiming at providing an additional shared storage. So you would still have your own bank, but what we'd really, really love to do as well is just having that shared place. I imagine that would be interactable, I guess, in like every normal bank, so you'd have like an extra option there to go into the shared storage. If we are to do this, this would have to be only accessible on the same world at the same time, kind of like the clan system that some people are aware of, that you can't access like the coffer in different worlds at the same time. It would work the same way.
Makes sense.
So we've got a lot of curious players asking a lot about like very niche questions that are relevant to them and what they're planning to do. And there's tons of them. I think we're going to have to be cruel and probably draw a line somewhere, but we'll continue for now. So Waldron asks, will Group Ironman groups be able to enter instanced PVM encounters like Zola and Hydra together?
No, we're keeping those the same. It's basically the same as untradables in that sense, yeah.
If it's intended to be a solo encounter, it remains a solo encounter.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. We got an amazing question from Optimus McBooty asking, will Mod Ash be in my group if I give him uncooked lobsters?
You'd have to ask him. I can't answer that for him.
Probably something like tea more than uncooked lobsters, perhaps, but
maybe.
But hey, you'll have to message Ash on Twitter to find out.
All right, let's take one more question from the chat, and the ones we've got unanswered, we'll carry them over to an upcoming Q&A, just to make sure we spend a lot of time digging into the cool Summer Summit stuff. So Stewie5 asks, can only the group do Theatre of Blood together, or can other people join the raids?
So initially, the idea was that you could only do it with the group, but that is very restrictive and very punishing if someone in your group suddenly leaves or is on holiday, right? You don't want Kieran going on holiday to like delay in our TOB grind or something. That would not be great. So we've decided to just allow anyone to group with anyone. It's way easier.
I don't think it's so unreasonable to require people to like sync up holidays just to make sure that doesn't happen. A group Ironman vacation perhaps. Okay, that's it from the chat questions we're going to take. Like we said, we've got tons more we'll get through in upcoming Q&As. But Elena, any last thoughts you'd like to share about Group Ironman at all?
Not really, just have fun.
Good luck, have fun.
Good luck. See you on the node.
Okay, shall we go and take a look at what Mod Flippy and Mod Oasis are up to?
Hello everyone, my name is ModFlippy and this is Mod Oasis, and we're here today to talk about Leagues 3. So it's been about half a year since Trailblazer Worlds closed down, and now it's about that time of the year again where we get to share some exciting news about what we've been working on so far. So we're super excited to share that with you, and of course we're looking forward to once again open the League Worlds later this year. But first, let's take a trip down memory lane. In Twisted League, we introduced the concept behind leagues in general. We gave players a set of tasks to complete, and from these tasks you earn points that you can use to unlock relics, purchase rewards at the end of the league, or compete in high scores. In Trailblazer League, we locked players into 5 different regions of the world. We gave them a new set of tasks and a new set of relics, and it was an absolute blast. In Leagues 3, we're letting you have access to the entirety of Gielinor, including Kebos and Kourend. However, there might be some other elements of the game that are restricted, and Mod Oasis will talk about that more soon. We've also taken relics, a core part of Leagues, and taken a brand new approach for this time around. This time around, relics have been shattered into fragments and scattered all across Gielinor. You can think of a fragment as a weaker version of a relic. They each contain a small portion of a relic's power, but when combined can create some truly powerful effects. You can only have a set amount of fragments active at once, but they can be exchanged inside a bank, so you need to be smart and think about which set of fragments do I bring for each activity. So, each fragment comes with one base effect, which is a more standard, weaker effect, but 2 set effects that when used with other unique fragments with the same set effect can create some really powerful buffs. And you might even recognize some of these buffs from previous League's relics. This fragment example comes with the base effect Reduce Poison Damage by 30%, and it comes with the 2 set effects Warrior and Abyssal Accumulator. So if you have, let's say, 3 or 4 fragments with the Abyssal Accumulator effect, you will activate that effect, similarly to how if you wear a full set of Guthan's armor, you're going to activate the healing effect. Fragments also come with presets that you can toggle between to make sure that you can carry your favorite combinations of fragments at all times. But collecting fragments won't be easy. Fragments have been scattered across the world as a mysterious character is concerned about the amount of power that you hold. You can prove your worth and earn this power back by collecting these fragments from skilling, bosses, clue scrolls, you name it. We want each league to feel unique and special so that you can create new and exciting memories together. And fragments are definitely an experimental spin on relics, and while just here temporarily, we are super excited to see you guys get creative and come up with some really inventive strategies.
In Leagues 3, we wanted to step away from area restrictions, allowing players to forge their own paths through the league. You'll be free to unlock content and bosses whenever you want, or leave them locked for the entirety of your playthrough. It's up to you. Let's start by looking at skill restrictions. In Leagues 3, you'll only have access to 3 skills at the start. We're not quite ready to divulge what those skills will be, but try to think which skills will be the most useful at the start of a league. Whilst you're pondering that, we're also planning to switch up the start location with Leagues 3. In Twisted League, we started you off in Kourend. In Trailblazer, Lumbridge. We'd like to do the same in this league. Just keep in mind that you have access to the entire map with this league. Something important to keep in mind with this league is not all skills will be priced equally. Some have more value in the main game, and those will be reflected in the costs it takes to unlock them. We really want players to take their own path through this league. Some of you will come in understanding which content you want to unlock already. Others will leave it up to chance, letting fate decide which content you unlock as you collect fragments throughout the league. On top of locking off skills, we also plan to lock off bosses. If you want access to some of the best gear in the game, you have to fork over some of your hard-earned unlock points to do so. Some bosses, due to their nature like the wilderness bosses, we're going to have to leave unlocked so you can access them from the start of the league, while others, such as raids, you'll have to pay a high price to get access to. This allows us to create a system where you, the player, need to prioritize your purchases. Will you unlock a boss before another, or is a skill more useful for you before unlocking that final raid? We hope that with Leagues 3, we offer a brand new twist on things you've come to expect, letting you experiment with your own playstyle. And that's Leagues 3 in a nutshell.
Yeah, we've definitely taken a more experimental approach this time around while trying to stay true to what a league actually is. And yeah, in summary, relics have been split up into fragments, which are essentially a weaker version of a relic holding a portion of its power. And you can collect these fragments from skills, bosses, and many more activities.
On top of that, we're restricting certain skills and bosses which you'll have to spend unlock points, which you gain by completing tasks. That's everything we have to show you with Leagues 3 for now. We're really excited to see what you can do with fragments and all the different play styles you come up with. Back to the studio.
So the theme for this league, it's a little different to the previous ones. Rather than looking at area locking the players, we're looking at content locking. So looking at taking away skills from players, access to bosses, access to minigames, that sort of thing.
The theme for Leagues is fairly abstract, so it's left us with all the room to explore the ideas and concepts surrounding it. I'm especially excited to work more towards the potential narrative of Leagues and kind of why the players are running around doing this crazy stuff in the first place.
With the Twisted League, we managed to lean quite heavily on the lore of the region, which helped us set an overarching thematic to the league. And as the league was quite experimental, it was the first time we'd done something like this, it worked quite nicely. And then when we moved on to Trailblazer League, the idea of going to lots of different places, setting your own path, instantly just sort of gave you that exploration theme running throughout it all, which made it quite easy to have something consistent to work with. But with this league being quite systems heavy, it meant we had to be a lot more creative when it came to figuring out the thematic for this league. I had a similar apprehension with Trailblazer, Leagues 2, but it turned out incredible in the end, so I think it might just be a side effect of this type of content. As Leagues is very interface focused, there's not much rhyme or reason as to why you're doing the things you're doing. Where are these relics coming from? Why are you doing these tasks? And why is this strange rule set dictating the way you play the game? These questions don't require an answer for the players to enjoy the league, but it just helps ground the world and just takes away from that system-heavy nature that is Leagues.
So the idea of giving the players more of a reason to why they're doing the things they are doing in Leagues, a new character is introduced to the game to kind of tell this story and ground the idea of Leagues and what it is actually about. This character is the Sage, and the Sage will work kind of as the League's tutor, but also kind of a narrative hook for Leagues to help tell the story to the player. The design started off as a hooded, mysterious creature who you wouldn't really know the gender or the race or who they actually are, and it has evolved with the narrative of Leagues. Who is the Sage? Is it a friend or foe? Are they the one behind all of this, or are they just here to help out? You'll just have to play the league to find out.
And there we have Leagues, and we are delighted to be joined by Mod Flippy. We'll be going through some of your questions and also some of our questions to begin as well. So before we get to the chat questions, let's kick things off. The concept, how did you come up with it?
Well, it was a big group effort, really. Like we sat, I think we just gathered all of us in a huge Zoom call to sort of throw out ideas, and we did some pitches previously where we all got to just come up with different concepts. So I think we took a lot of like parts of those concepts and mechanics and just mashed them together to one big idea. Then I sat and sort of refined this idea for a few weeks, and then we took it to the team to sort of flesh out the details and really dive deep into the specific mechanics.
Awesome. I mean, I don't know, as part of the process and how like it was a really drawn out, really team-based, collaborative experience, and it's really fulfilling, I think, as a dev team when we do that kind of thing. But do you know how long the league's going to run for?
I think we're looking at about 6 weeks this time around, so that's about like 2 or 3 weeks shorter than last time. And I think that's probably a healthy amount of time. Like we had some discussions previously from the last league where players were asking us to shorten it down a bit, and yeah, we'll try that time frame this time around.
Awesome.
So obviously during the talk you mentioned that it's not been so long since we finished Trailblazer. What learnings have we taken from Trailblazer and applied to this league?
It's difficult to say. I think we're starting to learn more and more about what Leagues is and what Leagues isn't in general. So each league is sort of a moment for us to experiment and push the limits and see how far we can take it. So I think from Trailblazer especially, we got down like 4 design pillars for Leagues, which is going to be crucial to sort of expand on in the future, and that's going to be really good for the game mode. We got some design pillars like fast and never tedious, a game-breaking experience and meaningful progression, and I think that's going to be good to have in the future. We also learned that the task list is sort of almost a to-do list for players, right? So it's originally we were thinking that players would see this task list and just pick out their favorite stuff, but in reality it's almost like, you know, a to-do list where you're gonna try to min-max the tasks, and of course we want to shift the tasks to be about fun and exciting content rather than really tedious grinds.
It's awesome to have seen how Leagues has evolved from even just this announcement, bringing way back in Twisted League, then to Trailblazer. You mentioned like the task list and the to-do list. You know, it was just initially get 10 cooking or get whatever level, arbitrary level we decide. And then from player feedback, we're like, okay, let's gamify it more. Rather than say
exactly.
get, you know, 76 fishing, it's go fish a shark, that type of thing instead.
Yeah.
I remember something that I think Husky said at the start of Trailblazer. It's nigh on impossible to click on anything around you without completing a task. And you know, I think that really helped push Trailblazer, and obviously we want to keep on learning from that and push it even further now with Leagues 3. But I've got a big question.
Big one.
Because I want Last Recall again. Is it going to be in Leagues 3?
I still, so I saw this and I still haven't decided whether it's a good idea to talk about it or not. I think I'm gonna say maybe for now. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see.
Play. I'll keep fighting that battle.
Yep.
There'll always be something from previous league that players will not want to live without, like the unlimited run energy, for example. That was such like it had to be brought across purely because of player demand and convenience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of those things where today we take for granted almost, like something like endless endurance, because they just make the game experience better in general, right?
Which is the never tedious pillar you spoke about.
Yeah, exactly. It ties very well into that. But something like Last Recall, it can of course be very can be really strong depending on the rules that you see in the league.
This brings me to my next question. So some relics are very, very strong. How do fragments compare in terms of like power level?
I think fragments are similar in many ways, but I think fragments will also look way stronger in other ways because of the customizability and the choice you have as a player now with fragments. That's going to give you a huge advantage in always being able to pick the best stuff available for whatever activity you're doing. So if you're doing PVMing, you're not going to be stuck with, you know, half of your relics being skilling oriented, but you're gonna be picking the PVM loadout. So of course that brings up the power level a lot. We've been looking internally of how to sort of slow the gameplay down a little bit and maybe look into tweaking bosses to make sure that it's somewhat aligned at least.
Cool. Makes sense.
Yeah, and so one other big change with this league is we're going to be restricting based on content rather than based on areas. So, you know, one thing that's going to be locked off is skills, right? You're going to start with only certain skills unlocked.
Yeah.
Through the league, will I be able to unlock every single skill?
Right now, yes. That's what's planned. Both for skills and bosses, we're going to let you unlock everything, but a big but. Of course, you need to complete tasks to get these unlock points, right, and to unlock skills and bosses. And naturally, you're going to have so many tasks to choose from at first, and it's going to be really easy to find good point per hour tasks. So it leaves you with this really natural diminishing return of gaining points, so that it's going to be much slower and much harder as you go on to sort of get those last unlocks out. Hopefully, at least that's where we'll end up balance-wise.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, imagine a lot of the balancing is to do still as we work through the project and work out what feels right as we're playing it ourselves internally and with playtests. But with that, I think we should move to chat questions.
Let's do it. So the first one we have is from Drummer Dude, and Drummer Dude asks, do fragments take up inventory space?
No, they don't. We have essentially a UI right now where you'll be able to see your collection of fragments. You'll be able to see all available fragments that you can collect, and you'll be able to see the ones that you have collected. And then you'll actually just have think of it as like an action bar where you can sort of drag fragments in and out. So they won't take up any physical space. It's just you unlock them and then you always have them with you.
Awesome.
Also, we've got a question from Mofo asking about pets. Obviously, pets have been one thing players can actually retain league to league.
Yeah.
And Mofo's question is, will pet rates remain the same as the main game?
Yeah, this time around. I personally think pet rates should probably stay the same in every league, because the moment we start increasing that, it sort of, you know, devalues it's the whole point of having something that is like pointless on paper, but that obviously is really fun to have and gather. And arguably, I think we should add more of that sort of permanent progression where we get to keep things league to league, and at least, you know, innocent stuff in terms of power. So yeah, they'll remain rare, and you'll be equally happy to get one this league as previous league. And yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, so obviously with Twisted League and Trailblazer, we saw some pretty juiced up XP rates.
Yes.
So Range for Life asks, what's the accelerated XP rates? And are the skills chosen at random, or does the player get to select the 3 at the start? So 2 questions there.
Yeah, fine. So XP rates, we're still looking at a 5 times multiplier, just like last league. And I think for now, XP rates are very similar to last league. Obviously, that might change. I don't want to say something here that, you know, we're locked into. But currently, we're looking at very similar rates to last league, both in terms of drop and XP. I think we hit a pretty good spot there in terms of progression. And the second one was about the second question?
Yeah, so the second question from Range for Life was, are the skills chosen at random, or does the player get to select the 3 at the start?
Neither. We have actually pre-selected 3 skills for you, and this is mainly the player has an enormous amount of choice already in this league, so I'm not too concerned about taking that small bit of choice away. But we have mainly picked skills that are suitable for the start and that we think might not create a bunch of bottlenecks, or, you know, players gathering in one spot to get one item or whatever. It's just skills that naturally will function well to complete a few early tasks and get a good start on the league.
Cool.
Awesome. We got a question from XP Waste Podcast.
Oh no.
Will there be any... Why oh no?
Don't waste XP. What are you doing?
Will there be any auto-completed quests in Leagues 3? Or will we have to do them all, like in Deadman?
Currently, we don't have any auto-completed quests. We have been... essentially, we have our, you know, to-do log for things we need to do to release the league, and then we have our wish list of things that, you know, if we get the time to do them, then we could look into it. And I think quests fall into that sort of wish list where if we get the time to look into it dev-wise, then yeah, we might get to that.
Okay, so let's take 3 more questions. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3 more questions from the chat, and then we'll move on to the next section. Nave Smith asks, what kind of rewards can we expect from League 3?
Similar setup to previous years. This time around it's a new theme, so you'll see a new theme of the rewards as well. We have established some default rewards now that you can expect from league to league, like the teleport animation, for example, and the relic hunter outfit, and those sort of rewards. But yeah, then you'll of course see a few new ones this league. We're not going to do a graceful this time around, but we're going to do something else, and yeah.
Cool.
Sea Biologist asking, could we get a bit more insight into the theme? I mean, you just mentioned the theme, but...
Yeah, sure. I guess. I think, I don't know how much I should say about the theme, but we have a new character which is, you know, sort of concerned about the amount of power that you hold, and you need to sort of prove yourself and go on this mission to find all of these fragments and to complete tasks to be able to interact with content again. And I think that sort of back and forth between this new character is mainly the new stuff we're looking at. Then there's a new very fancy color scheme coming with this league as well, of course, which will tie into the rewards and stuff, but yeah.
All the important stuff, the color schemes. Gotta be right.
The colors are, they're good this time around.
Well, I mean, I can still think of like the Twisted color and the Trailblazer color, so I think it's nice that we're building this nice identity.
We're still calling it Twisted Green, I think. The green we used for Twisted Green.
Okay, so the last question we're going to take from the chat, and obviously there's a ton more which we'll get to in future Q&As, especially when we're ready to talk more about leagues with things like rewards blocks. So MPS Devil asks, or states, hear me out, and then asks, what if the Sage character in Leagues 3 is unlockable as a final boss? Just saying.
Just saying. Yeah, honestly, if we had, if we find time over at any point during any league, I don't think it would be a bad idea to look into making some, maybe like a new boss at some point. I think that could be really cool for one league. It depends on the concept you're doing, of course. Now we've undertaken a massive job in terms of design and just normal development for fragments itself, because we're making quite a few of them. But yeah, of course, if you find yourself doing sort of a cheaper league, then finding room to create new monsters or bosses and stuff, that could be super cool. Absolutely.
No, for sure. Okay, I think that's it from the chat questions.
Cool.
Yeah, amazing. So thanks so much for Flippy. Unless there's anything else you want to talk about leagues before you go.
No, I'm just really looking forward to get on the League Worlds.
Oh, amazing. And it's really exciting to see how Leagues is progressing as we do come up to obviously our third one and hopefully many more in the future too. So with that said, let's hit the big one. We're going to go to Mod Ed and Mod Arcane.
Long ago, the citizens of the Caridian Desert lived luxurious and prosperous lives, guided by the gods of the Menethite pantheon. But all that changed when Amasket, the goddess of rebirth, was corrupted and warped, becoming the Devourer. Since then, she's had only one goal: to devour every soul in existence. Amasket's brother, Icflarin, along with her former high priestesses, fought tirelessly against her, but eventually she found a way to overcome them. Deep within the desert lies an ancient tomb. In this tomb, there is a great power, and if Amasket can gain it, she'll become unstoppable. You must take the fight to Amasket before it's too late. In Old School's third raiding dungeon, the Tombs of Amasket. Gather your allies and enter the tombs in groups of up to 8. Take on the 4 initial challenges, and if you overcome them, you'll be able to access the lower level. There, you'll face 2 of your greatest foes yet. Defeat these 2 final bosses and drive Amasket out of the tombs. And of course, claim plenty of loot as well.
With Tombs of Amasket, we're introducing a new system called Invocations. Invocations is a progressive and linear difficulty system. Unlike Theatre of Blood and Chambers of Xeric, where you simply have a challenge mode or a hard mode version of it to increase the difficulty even further, we want to have something that players can use to customize to their experience. Invocations are going to be a series of buffs and debuffs to bosses and players alike. Things like increasing the boss's damage, health, defense, changing around weapon styles, different types of defense values such as being weak to stab will now be weak to slash, maybe disabling spellbooks for certain players to be able to make the raid a little more different every single time, all with increased loot potential, of course. So we're hoping with this system that you're going to be able to enable as many as you feel comfortable with, to the point where you're getting rewards that you feel like you deserve. Additionally, with Invocations, we could even do things such as changing how certain fights completely play out, with either just disabling or re-enabling additional mechanics to the boss fights themselves. We're hoping with this new system, with the amount we're going to offer, it's going to be really interesting to see if players can actually complete the raid with all of these Invocations turned on, really hampering the player's ability as well as buffing all the bosses to the extreme. In the upper level of Tombs of Amasket, there's going to be 4 main paths. Each path is going to be themed after a particular avatar. Each path is going to consist of a more challenge style room, which may be more like sepulchre style dodging or defeating enemies in unconventional ways. Once you get through that, you're going to be then faced with a boss. The boss is going to be protecting the avatar, it's going to have various mechanics, and once you defeat a boss, it's then going to change the raid in a certain way. You can defeat any of these paths in whatever order you choose. However, the order you choose matters. Once you defeat one, it's going to maybe buff or debuff the rest of the raid in some way. So there's going to be a real emphasis on choices. Once you defeat all 4 bosses of the upper level, you're going to then unlock the lower level. You're going to progress down, and you're going to be faced with 2 bosses you're going to have to fight at the same time. This is going to be a really difficult fight, but you're going to have to overcome it to drive Amasket out of the tomb. And once you do, you can then claim your prizes. With the new raids come new rewards. We're going to have a blog coming out to you shortly that's going to be detailing all the new rewards we're going to be offering for this raid. However, let's give you a bit of a sneak peek now. The first one I want to talk about is a Hecker of Tomoka. This is a new powered wand, and it's going to have an attack speed of 2 cycles. However, we're also calling it a variable attack speed weapon. It's going to attack fast 3 times in a row, then the 4th attack is going to be a much slower, powerful attack. This is going to be a very high skill weapon that's going to take a bit of getting used to, but we think it'll be really fun, and magic also needs a bit of love. The next reward we want to talk about is a new ranged armor set called the Masori armor set. This is going to be 3 pieces of equipment consisting of chest, legs, and an amulet. This is going to introduce a new status effect into the RuneScape called Low Life. Low Life is a status effect that will activate when you're on less than 40% of your maximum hit points. When you're a low life, this equipment will gain additional stats. The idea behind this armor set is to have a much more of a focus on high risk, high reward gameplay. So you're going to be really low health during this content, but you're going to be getting much more offensive capabilities whilst doing so. The amulet is going to be slightly different, where it will be a very damaging amulet, but it's also going to have an additional effect of damaging you constantly whilst you're not on low life. So this amulet is going to help you get to that 40% threshold and keep you at that threshold. The last reward I want to talk about, since I could talk about rewards all day, is the Ward of Elidness. This is going to be a new best in slot mage offhand. It's going to drop in a broken state that you're going to need to repair with an arcane sigil and some runes. This is going to be a new shield that's going to feature a stat that we've never really had on a mage offhand before, Mage Strength bonus. We're hoping that anyone who does any sort of mage combat is going to really want this item.
The Tombs of Amascut is our most narrative-focused raid yet, and no narrative is complete without a quest. Before the raid launches, you'll be able to experience the next quest in the desert storyline, Beneath Cursed Sands. In this sequel to Contact, you'll have to investigate some mysterious disappearances from the golden city of Menaphos. Solve this mystery, and you'll unlock access to the raid itself. The quest is launching before the raid to give you plenty of time to prepare. So there you have it, a new quest, a new raid, and of course, some brand new rewards. We'll be sharing much more on the Tombs of Amascut very soon, but until then, thank you.
When I first heard we were doing an update in the desert, the Caridian Desert, we're near Menaphos, we're near Sophonim, my mind instantly goes to, Egypt. That, the history, the lore, the architecture. I think we're going to deliver content that's going to be really epic, really different to what we've seen in Old School. The creative process, the start of it, how we start these big pieces of content. We get the artists, we get the developers, we get everyone in a room, and we talked about the lore, and we started to flesh out ideas. We started, talking about our favorite bits of reference, the movies, the games that inspire us, the feeling that we want the players to feel like, when they're in these, puzzles and boss rooms.
We pulled out a lot of different images, references from real life, films, TV shows, things like that, and kind of picked apart how that would be applied to things like environments, characters, and even the rewards that the players will be able to get their hands on. The lore itself is really interesting, and from an art side of things, I'm really excited to start working on some of the bosses. When looking at Egyptian themes, there's a lot of really interesting design and architecture that can be brought into Old School, and it's going to be really interesting to see how that translates. The ideation phase is really important, I think, because you can start off with an idea, and once you discuss it with other people, pick apart things that probably won't work, things that could work, you might end up with something completely different that you didn't expect, but it's just so much better than what you started with. So yeah, it's a really cool process.
When it comes to the puzzle rooms, we're really pulling from a really wide range of references, specifically ideas really outside the game. We're looking at building puzzle rooms that are things that players have never done before in Old School. Things that, we're getting engine changes to allow us to do these things that people aren't going to expect because it doesn't exist anywhere else in Old School.
So the boss designs that we're currently working with at the moment are all really unique and interesting. It's something that's not really kind of been introduced into Old School before. There's a lot of interest in shape language and a lot of interesting influences from obviously Egyptian designs. We've had some challenges presented. There have been ideas that on paper sound really cool and amazing, but when you kind of think about the engine restrictions, it would be a little bit difficult to implement it and get it into game. That being said, we're not saying no to any of the ideas just yet. We're finding creative solutions to work around these problems that we've got and find a way to actually get it into game. And I think in the long run, it'll be really cool for the players to see what kind of new things we're introducing, and it'll be a great experience for them.
We're thinking really deeply about the lore, about the story that we're telling with these boss rooms and the bosses themselves. I don't want to spoil anything, but it's we're really digging deep into those and building thematics that not only give each boss room their own special feel, you know, gameplay and visuals, but also thematically overall, you know, the story that this whole bit of content is going to tell. Early days right now, and what we have in store, I think it's going to be, you know, amazing. I can't wait to show people.
Okay, and now you can stop spamming about raids free. Even when we just started to stream, it was just like, come and watch it and wait and find out and wait and see. It's called marketing. It happens at the end. It's all the good stuff there. We are joined by Mod Arcane. First of all, incredible job.
It's happening! Raids 3!
It is happening! It's happening!
We're all pumped for this. This has been really, really awesome just to get to this stage, but yeah, exciting.
Raids 4, okay. Alright, sure.
Slow down, please.
Look, no one does a 4. That's when you go like Raids the Chronicles or something. Like,
Raids 360?
Yeah.
Raids 1?
Okay.
Raid Shadow Legends.
Well, right, questions. Lots of questions about raids, naturally. There are tons of them. First, tell us, who is the raid aimed at?
The raid is generally aimed for, hopefully, as many players in that sort of endgame category as possible. So Chambers of Xeric was a lot lower level compared to like Theatre of Blood. Theatre of Blood was very, very difficult, high barrier to entry, very punishing. Raids 3, Raids 3, Raids 3, Raids 3, Raids 3. But we're hoping with Tombs of Massacre, it's going to aim with a broader appeal than TOB, but hopefully push people further than TOB did with the Invocation system. Much more of a customizable system, so hopefully people can get into it a bit easier, but then you can push it much further.
Cool, Team of Biscuit, awesome. I love seeing how excited people are. That's great. So you kind of touched upon it, but I'll ask the questions again. So first of all, how hard do you think this raid will be? And then how do you think it will compare to Chambers of Xeric and Theatre of Blood?
It's hard to say since we're still very early in design. I do hope to push it further with Invocations a lot further than TOB, but because it's like a linear progression system with the whole Invocations, it should be more approachable to get into and less punishing than TOB. TOB's whole like wipe mechanic was a bit of a deterrent, and that's not going to be a strict thing that TOA is going to have. We're not just going to have the same wipe system. It's going to be sort of similar, but kind of different at the same time. What was the other question? How hard is it going to be? It's kind of subjective. Hopefully hard, hopefully difficult, but hopefully more approachable to get into than TOB.
Cool.
Awesome. So there's one big system you talked about a little bit, Invocations. Can you tell us a little bit more about those?
Yeah, so Invocations, instead of like TOB's got like entry mode, regular mode, and hard mode, we want to have more linear progression system. So there's going to be maybe 30 or 40 invocations that you can all activate. You can almost think of them as some sort of modifier to the raid, and that'll actually affect the players, or it'll affect the raids and the bosses. It might just change a couple of numbers here and there. It might drastically change the fight. It might drastically change the strategies that the players actually take to the fight. And you're going to be able to enable as many or as little of these modifiers to the raid as possible. So if you want a bit more of a chill experience, or just not activate very many, your loot reward potential will go down accordingly. But then if you're looking for a challenge, you can activate more and more and more of them, get more and more and more loot.
Cool, so Invocations sound awesome, but I guess the question we'd like to ask is, why are we opting for that as opposed to the standard structure we've seen in Chambers of Xeric and Challenge mode and Theatre of Blood and Hard mode? Why are we resorting to this rather than following that?
There's a mixture. I think the first one is just more interesting. I think entry mode, normal mode, and hard mode, whilst it's okay, it's a little too linear. Our players are a much broader spectrum than just like 3 categories. So I think that linear progression system will feel a lot more rewarding, where it's like, yeah, I can beat the raid with like 1 or 2, and then 3 or 4, and then 5 or 6. You're gonna have that like inbuilt progression system for the players themselves. And it lets us have a bit much more wider appeal. Like we really want to have raids that push players to their limits, but then TOB kind of proved like you can't just raise like the end barrier as well as the minimum barrier higher and higher and higher, because then it just eliminates so many players from actually being able to access the raid at all. So we're hoping this like just widens it, where it increases the upper end but also lowers the lower end as well, and hopefully reward people appropriately.
Cool.
Awesome. So with these invocations, obviously you mentioned that the loot potential will increase the more you've got on. Could players just like min-max it, optimize it, find the right set of invocations and stick for that forever, and you don't end up with that goal of like modified experience each time?
I fully expect that to happen. Like without any RNG, players will always figure out the most efficient ways to do anything, and that's just kind of how our game goes. And having the RNG in there can fix that, but it can also make it kind of frustrating at the same time. Like RNG has to be placed carefully. So we do expect that after a long period of time, with enough invocations and enough playtesting and enough players just throwing themselves at this content, because our player base is really smart now compared to like 3 or 4 years ago. It's actually kind of crazy. They'll just do whatever we release. Enough time, the optimal methods will be figured out, and that'll be okay. But the optimal methods might still be difficult. So the optimal method for efficient points per hour in Chambers of Xeric is like 7 + 3 or like 4 + 3 or something. But not every player does that, right? Some players are still going to have 0 invocations on in TOA just to like learn the mechanics, get into it, slowly have that progression. And once they get good enough, maybe they will switch to the like optimal setup. But I think that'll take quite a while for most players to get to that comfortable point. But yeah, I fully expect that people will have that optimal setup, but I also fully expect people, like, even if it's like, oh, maybe 24 out of 30 invocations activated for the optimal points per hour or whatever, some players will still want to push for 30 out of 30, just because of the challenge, the thrill. It might be fun with your friends, right? Have a clan with eight people together doing the raid, or you have as many on as possible and it's just chaos. It'd be fun in itself.
Cool, so it's probably quite easy to forget that there wasn't just a raid announced, there was also a quest as well, Beneath Cursed Sands. So this quest, will completing it be a requirement to play the raid?
Completing Beneath Cursed Sands will be a requirement to play the raid, yeah. We're planning to release it a bit sooner than the raid itself, so you'll have time to actually do the quest and carry on from there. I believe the requirements is Contact, really popular quest that all of our players love, as well as I think it's 62 agility, 55 fire making, 55 smithing, so fairly low requirements apart from Contact if you really just don't want to do that quest, but you should get a quest cape anyway because quest cape's fun.
So yeah, or fun but useful, especially certainly useful.
And the other big topic, rewards, and you talked a little bit about rewards in those in the video. The ranged armor is trying something quite new with the low life status. So you can talk a little bit about where that idea came from.
So I played Path of Exile quite a lot, and they do a lot with low life, and they've supported it in a lot of different ways. And I just thought it was quite an interesting system, and I think like high risk, high reward gameplay, most players generally like that concept, and I'm interested in trying it in Old School. And I'm interested to see what the players think about that as well. If that sounds like something that'd be fun to try and play, or do we just want another armor set with just higher stats than Armadillo and we can just go with that? Again, all these rewards are up in the air. There's going to be a poll and a blog and all that stuff, and there'll be a beta for you guys to play it and try it out. If you don't like it, we can go a different route. This is just the current proposal. We're like, this is an interesting idea. We've not tried it before. Maybe this is the stuff that you want. I think it'd be really interesting, like seeing really good players doing like Inferno with just 40 health the entire time, just to get the maximum DPS possible. I think that'd be really interesting, really exciting. 40 health is like a really nice threshold where like, generally, nothing really hits you for unavoidable 40 damage, so you can survive it if you play well. So I think it should work pretty well, to be honest.
Personally, something I really like is how we're adding more creative styles of reward. There's more diversity to what's on offer in terms of what players can use and choose to do. And that kind of brings me on to the next question I had, which is power creep. It's pretty hard to avoid with new PVM rewards. People always want something new. People always want something that's going to be valuable. How far do you feel we're pushing that boundary right now with the rewards that we're offering here?
It's hard to quantify, but power creep's inevitable to a certain degree. It just needs to be done well. It needs to be done carefully. It needs to feel appropriate from the content it comes from, and it needs to feel like it's not just overshadowing old content. I'd like to think that this fits this category, where it's coming from really high-end gameplay, it requires a lot of investment, where in this case it's like the life pool, it's going to be 2 or 3 items to actually achieve this additional damage. So hopefully it feels appropriate. Obviously, if we get feedback saying like, no, this is blatant power creep, tone it down, that was fine. We'll rethink it. But yeah, it's a very careful thing that we need to consider, and I think we've done an okay job of this so far.
Cool. So let's go to some chat questions. First question we've got is from Kiwi. They ask, is it designed to scale down to 1 to make it soloable without greater difficulty?
Yeah, so we're not going to be designing the raid with solo particularly in mind, but we do really want to make sure it is soloable. So TOB had the problem where it was just 3 to 5 pretty much, but 5 felt a bit too chaotic, especially if you're getting into it. 3 was very punishing, because if one player died and you only had 2, 2 was really awkward. So most people opted for 4 until you got really comfortable, then you like went back down to 3 for better money. And that's kind of lame, because 3 people is like very specific. There's no flexibility there. If there's just 2 of you, don't really want to do TOB. Like if there's like 5 of you, you don't really want to do it. If there's a 6th person, you just have to sit by the sidelines, see you later. It's not great. That's what Chambers of Zerg is really good for, like 1 to 100. It's any flexibility. Your extra friend wants to come along, great. So 1 to 8 hopefully gives enough flexibility where you feel like you can have a large portion of your friends come with you, as well as like you don't need them to be online to do the content. Not saying solos is going to be efficient. Might be worse points per hour, but it'd be more efficient than bank standing waiting for your second person to log in. So hopefully that'd be good.
Let's be honest, we all know it, and the chat all knows it. We're just going to solo it in 3 months with all Invocations on.
Yeah, and then we might have to add some more Invocations, and that's fine.
So Feraik is asking, will we be able to dismantle our current arcane shields to get our sigils back?
Yeah, so that's a big question where you're attaching this arcane sigil to the Warden of Validness to combine it, to reactivate it and make it an equipable shield. Currently, your arcane shields, like you can't combine the shield, you have to combine the sigil. So we've introduced a feature on, I think, Abbot Langley to basically revert that process. Destroys the Blessed Spirit shield, but you'll get the sigil back. So then you can reattach it to the Warden of Validness.
Cool, so the new quest, Beneath Cursed Sands, what difficulty is it going to be?
I can't remember the actual categorization for it. I assume it's like intermediate, but it won't be a crazy difficult quest. I think the recommended combat level is 80, so really low level, but you want a few combat stats. There will be some fighting in it.
Cool.
I think our feeling on it was, if you're somebody who's going to be wanting to do raids free, you'll probably be fine doing the quest.
Yeah.
So the next question, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, like what team size is raids free aimed at?
1 to 8 currently, so a bit higher than TOB, but we also want to promote the flexibility. Like TOB is technically 1 to 5, but realistically it's like 3 to 4, then kind of 5, kind of 2, and
Yeah.
kind of 1. But yeah, we're hoping that 1 to 8 will all feel relatively viable for a TOA.
Awesome.
Cool. Still plenty more questions from the chat coming. So Red Zepper asks, will raids free be a safe death?
It won't be a safe death for Hardcore Ironman. If you die in there, you'll lose your status, similar to TOB. It'll have a different death system than TOB though. We're not going to go with strict wipe mechanic for TOB. We're experimenting with some like soft wipe mechanic, maybe like 3 wipes or maybe a certain amount of wipes per boss. We're still experimenting with that, but we do expect to have a slightly different death system altogether.
Cool.
I got a question from Mobile Viewer about what length of time does the team anticipate each room taking? And I imagine that might be quite hard to answer right now, but maybe you got an idea of the length for the full raid?
I think we're currently aiming like 35 to 45, but it's so hard to estimate because our players will just find some weird method of killing everything like twice as fast. So that's the goal at least.
Okay, so the next question is from N. Sandon, and they ask, are there going to be any desert-related rewards because it's based in the desert?
There are some rewards. I mean, all the rewards are sort of themed on either the raid or the lore within the raid itself. So the Hecker of Tumoka, it's related to like a god or an avatar within the raid itself. There's a Kopesh. Is that how you pronounce it? Kopesh? Kopesh? The weird curved, like pointy sword. So yeah, we've got some desert themed weapons and rewards.
How about a scroll you can read and it makes you immune from desert heat forever?
That sounds a bit too OP, sorry.
Fair enough. Don't want to be too much power creep. A Lemonade NT is asking, will the amulet effect be active even when not in the set? Will you be able to use it to lower your life for Darox and potentially other low life effects?
So it will lower your life as long as you are not affected by low life. So if you're above 40% health, it will damage you. The certain like numbers are still up to debate in terms of like how fast it will get you lower. I still imagine like a rock cake or a locator orb will get you lower faster, but we didn't want people to feel like they had to use a locator orb in PVM to make this armor set worth it. So the amulet's like this thing where it'll like try and keep you at that 40% threshold quite easily, quite passively. So you don't need to actively think about it too much.
Cool, so we're going to take 3 more questions from the chat before we look to move on and wrap up. But naturally, there are so many questions related to Raid that we will look to cover very soon in upcoming streams. So a guy named Spar asks, will we be able to swap weapons to reset the attack progression of the new one? Because obviously you mentioned every 4th hit, it does the slower, more powerful attack. Could you just swap out and then swap back if you want to carry on the quicker hits?
Currently how it's implemented, you could attack, say, twice with the wand, and then you could maybe equip a Sang, attack once, and then you could equip the wand again, attack, and then big attack.
Okay.
So you could swap out. Up to feedback on that if people think that's a good thing. I currently think it's a cool thing right now, so you have a lot more flexibility. Like I'm imagining in like hard mode Niloca's room, like imagine that you attack like 2 mini mage crabs, and then you, or 3 mini mage crabs, and then you maybe sang the the big like demi-boss, the Princupus that spawns, and then you do the big attack from the Hecker, which has got a longer attack delay after it. So that'd be like a cool way of getting optimal DPS out of that, and I'd rather players have that like flexibility, because I think that'd be a lot more interesting.
I quite like the idea of being able to stack up that and queue up that big hit just
Yeah.
to whenever you want to like unleash it.
Exactly,
Sounds cool.
Plus one is asking, will there be any skilling related parts to Raids 3, similar to James' Eric, or is it going to be mostly a strictly combat based experience?
Currently, based on the challenge or the path designs that we're talking about, there isn't like strict skilling, but there'll be like sort of skilling elements, like you might use a pickaxe here or there, and there'll be more like an agility focus, like more sepulchre style dodging or movement. So more so than TOB, probably less so than Chambers, if you want a rough ballpark.
Cool. And the final chat question, and what a one to end on, is from Zeldin OSRS. Can they ask, will there be a skeleton boss called Indiana Bones?
Might have to defer to Ed on that one. He'll pick the names.
Because it's such deep lore and he is the lore man?
Yeah, exactly.
That's why. Okay.
Defer all those responsibilities onto him.
Right, okay, that brings us pretty much to the end of the Summer Summit. We hope you enjoyed it. Now, I know a lot of players are curious about how it's going to look in terms of roadmap and what's coming when. So, rough timeline as it currently stands now, I just want to put a big old asterisk on everything. Subject to change, development is a tricky business, things can change, but what we're telling you right now is in good faith, it's what we're aiming for. So, you already heard that we're aiming to release Deadman Reborn on August the 25th, very soon. Hot on its heels is Group Ironman, which is coming when, Modkieran?
Early mid-autumn / fall.
/ fall. Whatever you call it. We're going to be wrapping up 2021 with Leagues 3. And then what better way to start 2022 with the new raid, Tombs of a Massacre and Beneath Cursed Sands. Well, as we said, we want to bring Beneath Cursed Sands just before the raid so you're all ready to go. So that's not it. I mean, those are the big beats that we wanted to cover in this Summer Summit, just to make it a really special live stream for everybody. In between those major releases, and now I'm going to look down at my script because there's a lot coming up, we've got a lot of Wilderness improvements. We've got, including the Wilderness boss rework. There's a big content poll 76, which, like all other content polls, will be shaped by you. A lot of improvements to the official game client. You know, we're already one milestone deep. Next week, there'll be more features coming. And for the rest of this year, we're looking to bring in things like skilling helpers, XP tracking tools, loot tools, including tracking and then ground item changes, NPC indicators, and clue scroll features as well. Plus, we're hoping to get all, if not some, of those onto mobile as well. We're also going to be paying close attention to the game economy. We're going to begin exploring gold sinks and item sinks. We know it's been quite sought after, and we're listening. Plus, there's going to be the usual Halloween and Christmas events, giving you the opportunity to earn new season rewards and claim rewards from events past. That's not all, so we know there's a lot of burning questions about the game's health, and Mod Bonsai, Old School's executive producer, will be addressing those in a series of leadership blogs and streams. And we're also very happy to announce the return of the Gillinor Gazette, complete with postbag and player gallery features, a more community-driven type of approach. So that brings us to the end. All I can say is thank you so much for joining us this evening. This is a new format. It's been an absolute pleasure hosting this, talking about the next wave of game content. We're hoping, if you liked it, and people in the Jagex liked it as well, to come back with a winter summit. So we really love your feedback. What worked? What didn't work? Let us know. So I'm going to hand off to Mod Kieran and Mod Arcane. Any other comments you'd like to share?
Just thanks so much for tuning in. I really hope you agree. Like, there's some exciting stuff coming up. Like, we can't wait to bring Deadman back. Obviously, that's very, very soon. In fact, the blog is live now, right?
Right now.
Right now. So straight after the stream, go and give that a read. Raid 3, we know how long you've been shouting about it, and like, it's been so difficult for the last few months when everyone's been asking for it. We've been waiting for the big moment to announce it, and you know, we've been doing meetings together, sharing ideas. The artists have been really inspiring with the themes that they've been producing, and working really closely with Arcane and the other content developers. It's truly amazing to see it all come together, and to finally sit here in the studio and announce it. It's like, it makes it all worth it.
It's my first time on this as well.
First time.
First time in the stream room.
It really does make it all worth it. So thanks so much. And I want to, you know, also shout out everybody else. You know, there's a lot of people who've been involved in this stream. But, you know, we got obviously Druid and Spear behind the scenes, but the whole video team, all those packages, the sound, the scores for those videos and everything, it was absolutely amazing. But of course, all the people in the office as well who've contributed to, say in the office, you know exactly what I mean, in the office. But everyone who's contributed to these features, working together with, not just obviously with the people you've seen on the sofa and on the video as well. So thanks everyone for making all of this happen. It's truly a really nice feeling to be kind of back sat on this sofa, and we got an awesome next, half a year ahead of us.
Cool. I just want to carry on the theme of shout-outs before I hand over to the Mod Arcane. A big shout-out to every JMod in the chat who's been kind of keeping things ticking over. Been really grateful for your support. And also, really a big shout-out to the players. We know you've been kind of waiting patiently. You feel like there's been a bit of a dearth of content this year, and we've known all along that it's kind of coming to an end, and the rest of this year is going to be really cool, and we're going to start 2022 in a big way. So thank you for your patience, thank you for your support. Like I said at the start of the stream, it's been so amazing to have your ongoing support, and the fact that you you find so much solace and hope in Gillinor all through this really troublesome time. It makes our job so special. So a big thank you. And I also want to a little shout out, as Mod Sani has directed, to Sir Dude for helping support the stream of the Reddit mega thread. So thank you there. Right before we wrap up, and I think we're going to try and go to the pub, see if we can sneak in a couple of pints. Yes. Mod Arcane, anything else you'd like to share?
Content.
Okay, let's call it there. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, we'd love to get your feedback, because if this has gone down well, maybe we'll be back again in another 6 months or so over the Winter Summit. Right, enjoy your weekends. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much.